So as CEO of Archer Daniels Midland since 2006, Pat Wertz has guided the agribusiness giant through more than a few global storms. Today, she's talking about change, a corporate move to the big city, and continued success in the face of challenges. Please welcome Jennifer Reingold and Pat Wertz.
Welcome, Pat. Thank you. So ADM has had quite a year of transition. You have almost done a huge acquisition, done another enormous acquisition, and then in the middle of all this moved your global headquarters. Tell us about what this has meant for the company.
Well, ADM's a 112-year-old company, so it's a small blip in the scheme of things, but we have done a couple of acquisitions. We are looking strategically at expanding globally on one sort of axis and expanding down the value chain on the other axis. So our acquisition, which we just closed on, is called Wild Flavors. It's natural ingredients. It helps us down that axis. And
that's based in Switzerland?
It is. It's a global company, but it is based in Switzerland. And we have had an opportunity also to move our global headquarters. We still have a very large presence in Decatur, Illinois. It's our North American headquarters, but we've moved, we have an office of about 100 people now in Chicago, and things are going well.
And why did you decide to do that?
The move?
Yeah.
It was important to our customers, our shareholders, our partners, investors to be able to visit with us, and it's become a little more difficult logistically to do that in Decatur. We've also become a much more global company over the years. We're more than half outside the U.S. now. So having a hub that has good transportation and logistics to be able to have our folks visit as well as travel ourselves was pretty important. It helps with two working families where you have careers that the spouse or the partner has a place to develop their career, and the larger city helps with that as well.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I thought was really interesting was that there was a lot of talk of being incentivized by the city and the state to do this move, and yet it didn't happen in the end, and you still moved. So what does this show all those people out there who say that they must incentivize a company if they would like them to be in their city?
Well, we felt that it was important to take advantage of or to apply for credits that existed for companies that wanted to do a move like we did. And we applied for those. We helped with a local senator who drafted legislation. It was passed in our state Senate, but they did not take it up in the House, and we're probably not planning to do that for quite a while. And we needed to move on with our business. So we chose to do potentially a little smaller move, or actually it turned out to be a bit of a smaller move than we had planned, but put it on our own timetable at our own pace. And we looked at several cities, and Chicago turned out to be the right choice for us.
But does that suggest maybe that people in government should push back on corporations? I mean, there has been this assumption that without the aid and without the subsidies, that companies won't do it. And yet you still decided that this was the place for you.
Well, we looked at several criteria in looking at where to move. So I would say that most data that you'll ask companies that have moved locations or moved headquarters, tax incentives or incentives in general were somewhere on the list, but not the first thing on the list. Certainly other things were important to us for the city that we'd locate in, including good talent, good transportation, as I mentioned. We wanted to be somewhere around or in the Midwest. And so I think other criteria kind of fell into place as well. So I think governments need to look at that just in general, but certainly having a good corporate and business platform, which Chicago was for us, we felt very good about that.
And you're still thinking about where to locate your technology center? Is that up in the air?
We are. We have about a 100-person tech center that we want to build out, and we're in the process of looking for a location for that. With our current acquisition of Wild, they have also some property in different places, including their headquarters in the U.S., so it may also come on the list, which hadn't been there before as a possibility.
Okay. So I know we spent a lot of the last panel discussing volatility in the world, and if there is a company that is experiencing volatility every day on the ground, it is probably yours. So give us a sense of what all these changes in the world have meant for the company. How do you deal with them? I mean, you've got operations in Ebola areas, you've got things in Ukraine. How does it work?
Well, we are a very global company. We kind of connect the harvest to the home. So anywhere in the world where crops are grown, we transport them. So we're a very large logistics company. We kind of connect them to where people need to eat. And obviously where crops are grown aren't always where the demand is. So there's a lot of movement. We touch millions of tons a day of crops, and sometimes they're grown in regions with difficulties. They may have weather difficulties, there may be geopolitical challenges, there may be disruptions of other sorts. So in some ways, we actually dampen the volatility because we're able to deliver to our customers from places that aren't having troubles from other places. For example, if there's a drought in Australia, we can probably deliver wheat from the Black Sea region or from North America. Or if there's difficulties in the Black Sea region, we can support from South America and elsewhere. So one of the ways to deal with volatility globally is to be globally diverse.
And has that been a big element of your own strategy to diversify specifically so that you're not too dependent in one geographic area or crop?
It has. We started our company in North America, so we've been very U.S.-centric for many years, and we've expanded over the last 20 years, certainly to South America, to Europe, to the Black Sea region, to Australia. So it's important, I think, to be much more globally diverse in a business like ours. While we're not farmers, we don't produce the crops, we do interact with farmers wherever they are produced, and if you can have diversification, North America, South America, or Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, it definitely helps both the seasonal aspect of our business as well as with global disruptions and just serving customers more globally.
And this was, I'm going to guess, part of the reason for the attempted acquisition of Grain Corp in Australia, which was rejected by the government. Tell me a little bit about that. Why did that happen? What, did it have anything to do with the past history of ADM? I read some things where people in the Australian press brought up a lot of the past history of the company and used that as a sort of what seemed like an attempt to torpedo the deal.
Can't believe everything you read. The deal was done under 3 different governments, so we had approval from a board of directors, and then we had a change in government in Australia, and then a very quick election called, so actually we were dealing with 3 different treasurers or prime ministers, 3 different sets of government. I think as it turned out, we became a political chit maybe in the whole process, but nonetheless, we're happy with our 20% investment in Grain Corp, and we hope to work with them to continue to develop some synergies together, even if it's not 100%.
And is that deal over?
At the moment, we're focused on the 20% we own. Yep.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about climate change. We are seeing it physically, even out the window here. We are, the droughts in California. Obviously, crop production is being affected in good ways and in bad ways. What are you doing to address climate change inside the company?
Well, we certainly pay attention to weather and weather patterns. Again, it's very important for us to understand what farmers are experiencing. We try to work with them and even predict what farmers will plant in various regions. So sometimes some of the weather and pattern changes, be they related to global warming or not, are moving northward. So there's been a lot more warmer weather in northern regions, for example, in North America. So we'll watch those patterns. That's something important for our longer term planning. When it comes to basic how to address carbon in the world, we're trying to do sort of our small part. We have the largest carbon capture and sequestration project in the United States in our backyard in Decatur, Illinois. So we're injecting carbon right off of our corn plant. We're turning it into a gel, compressing it, and injecting it about 6,000 to 7,000 feet below the surface under a capstone, several capstones actually, of Illinois
just
geology.
I understand, you're capturing the carbon as it comes off the corn, and you're burying it.
And we're injecting it into the earth. It's a combination of Archer Daniels Midland, the Department of Energy, and the Illinois Geologic Survey, kind of a consortium of the 3 of us. And what we'll do is monitor that plume that's created underground for 10 years to see if it moves, what happens to it. And hopefully there's a learning there that will mean other companies, other industries could use CCS, or carbon capture and storage, as a method of maybe making energy cleaner as a result of the carbon obviously not going into the air or anywhere else.
And for how long have you been doing this?
We had one project which injected 1 million ton, and we've just started our second project, which the wells are being drilled as we speak, so that will be another 1 million ton.
Great. I'd love to take a couple of questions. Do we have any here? I confess to not being able to see. Okay, I'll keep going. Let's talk about ethanol. Ethanol was a really large focus of your strategy when you came in, and as a product, it has not really performed globally, I think, as a lot of people anticipated. So what is your feeling on ethanol as part of your strategy?
Well, I would take exception to your premise. Ethanol is the cheapest transportation fuel in the world. As a result, it's probably the cheapest for a couple of reasons. There's certainly cheap corn in the United States, and ethanol, as it's made either from corn or advanced materials or sugar, is the cheapest transportation fuel anywhere in the world. So there's a lot of demand pull. Actually, from the United States perspective, we're exporting a lot of ethanol. It was kind of created as a homegrown fuel to put in the fuel pool in the United States. We blend up to 10% in the fuel pool today, but the rest of the production is exported to places like Peru and Philippines, the Middle East, Europe, Canada, even Brazil. So it's actually a big export of the United States, contributing to the trade surplus. So it's actually a successful product around the world, and it's in the full 10% in the U.S.
But is it fair to say that the strategy has shifted a little bit away from ethanol as a main focus for the company?
Well, I don't think the strategy was ever the main focus, but it was certainly a significant focus for the corn segment of our business. So we have some big segments. There's oil seeds, there's corn, there's our whole transportation and ag services business, our ingredients and flavors business. So for corn, it is one of the 30 products that you make from a kernel of corn, and certainly ethanol was a big one. But it's a very successful business within our corn business.
Great. Let's just shift tax a little bit. And I wish, Pat, you could reflect a little bit. You've been CEO now for 9 years.
Almost, yeah.
And we were talking a little bit backstage about the conference itself and how women are running so many of these large industrial companies now. When the list was first started, most of the women who were on the list were in media, publishing, traditionally female roles. So give us a little perspective. What do you see?
Oh, I think it's fabulous that there are so many more women in industrial businesses. I mentioned to Jennifer on backstage that I was traveling with Secretary Pritzker, who I think will be here tomorrow, with the President's Export Council. And at one point they asked us to do a media review, and there were 10 CEOs, but only 4 of us decided to do media. And it was actually 4 female CEOs and Secretary Pritzker. It was pretty remarkable in front of the international and Polish, and there was the Turkey portion of the trip. These female CEOs were many people made a comment about it. I think we had a lot to say about being there, related to exports, related to trade issues, but the remarks about more women in these businesses was certainly made.
And I guess we'll know we've really arrived when no one remarks on it at all. And that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much, Pat.
Thank you, Jennifer.